Happy Halloween! Today we are going to be looking at how to take your pumpkin carvings to the next level with the stained glass lantern. Through a good amount of trial and error on my part, I've almost perfected the art of crafting this show-stopping Halloween decoration, and I want to teach you how to do it yourself. It's so much easier than you think. So I'm guessing that very few of you have mastered the art of stained glass, and that's okay. Real glass is not needed here today. And would you believe that you only need one or two things beyond what you would use for traditional pumpkin carvings? These are color light gels, and they are all that you will need to create this awesome color display that will leave the neighborhood kids in amazement and terror. And guess what? They are relatively inexpensive as well. I've linked some of my favorites below in the description. Depending on the colors and the amount you need, most packs are in the $10 to $20 range, and they give you more than enough. Other than that, you will only need the standard jack-o'-lantern tools and materials, plus a few things you probably already have around your house, push pins and toothpicks. But along the way, I will also let you know about a few other products that can make the project just a little easier and help them stand out that much more. First up, let's choose the carving pattern. You can grab these from the pattern book, get online inspiration, or manifest and draw out your dream pumpkin. Just don't get too crazy like I did. There are a few things you'll need to keep in mind when finding the right pattern for your stained glass lantern. These four things will dictate the skill level required to pull it off effectively. The details of the pattern, the number of colors used, the size of each window, and the space between windows. Once a pattern has been chosen, you have been chosen. I like to use a dry erase marker to draw out my design. If any is left on the pumpkin after carving, you can just wipe it off, and then you can carve it out like any other pumpkin. In this case, I had a lot of pumpkins to carve, so I'm gonna get to it. And now that we're on to the carvings, I'm gonna start you off with the easy designs. To make this as easy as possible, first off, we will only use two different colors. Now, you may ask, can I just use one color? And sure you could, but it's honestly easier and cheaper just to get a color changing light than to use light gels for one color. In addition to keeping the number of colors low, we also want to use a simple carving pattern and larger windows that have a larger space between the windows. Pick any pattern you'd like: scary, silly, angry, scared, and after carving your pumpkin, choose two contrasting colors to add to the vibe that you're going for. When you are only using two colors, you do want to make sure that you choose colors that aren't close on the color wheel. The closer they are, the harder it can be to tell that there are two colors. Here's a pumpkin with blue eyes and a green mouth, and I can't really tell the difference. You want to cut both colors of your gel as big as possible while making sure that they don't overlap in the visible windows. On most of these gels, there is a protective film covering both sides, so be sure to take those off. The gels can overlap inside the intact parts of the pumpkin, but make sure they don't overlap in the visible window areas. If the gels are cut big enough, they will bend around the inside of the pumpkin and stay put without any additional support or connections. And that's it. You have already created an easy tier stained glass lantern. Way to go! And you know what? You put a few of these together with different colors, and it makes for a really striking display. Now, we are going to start looking at more difficult patterns, more colors, smaller windows with smaller gaps between. I find that the biggest bang for your buck is going to be pumpkins that have 5 to 6 larger window panels. When cutting the gels for these harder pumpkins, you will need to trim many times to get the fit just right. To attach the gels to the inside of the pumpkins, we will poke a hole with a push pin. Then stick a toothpick in the pre-punctured hole and squeeze it in there till you have a decent amount on the side that will be contacting the pumpkin. Then, using scissors, cut off the excess toothpick on the other side. Finally, carefully place the light gel in the correct spot inside of the pumpkin. You may need to pull it up and adjust a few times to make sure it is in the correct spot. You can go for even harder, more intricate designs, but if the windows are too small, it will be very tedious to get them placed. I was a little too adventurous on this design. I even simplified it, and it still didn't come out like I had hoped. Now, if you look at it as more an abstract piece of modern art, it still looks pretty cool. But this design did prove a little too difficult to pull off in the manner that I intended. Now, something to keep in mind, like all carved pumpkins, these jacks are here for a good time, not a long time. So if you are wanting to get something a little more permanent out of all of your hard work, you can make these from craft pumpkins and in theory, use them for more than one Halloween season. I just made mine this year, so no promises on how well they'll keep up in storage, but I think if you're careful with them, it should be fine. When using crafting pumpkins, I do recommend the crafting tool called a hot knife. Hot knife will make it so much easier to get precise cuts. Just be sure to be careful and only use it outside or in a well ventilated space. And when cutting, be sure to cut away from your body to avoid injury. After carving, you may want to quickly paint the edges you cut as they will be white, and for me, that throws off the overall effect in daylight. Once dried, you'll want short push pins to attach the gels to the inside of the pumpkins. Try your best not to pop them through the whole outside of the pumpkin, but I did that about a million times and it still looks okay, so I wouldn't stress it. Other than that, there's really no big difference between using the crafting pumpkins and real ones for this project. Our last big topic before the final reveal is lighting. Not an expert, but I don't think it would be safe to have a open flame inside of these. So, when picking lighting, you want to make sure that you choose a product with white lights. Be careful with the flickering pre-packaged lights. While the flickering is great for a standard jack-o'-lantern, anything with the yellow light will distort your colors. My biggest recommendation is to get some color-changing LED mini puck lights. They come with a remote, which makes them super handy so that you don't have to stick your hand into a pumpkin every time you want to turn them on and off. But there is one more reason why I would recommend the color changing LEDs, and it's because of these buttons right here. Now, you've already seen some of the shots of how these interact with the colored gels for a really cool effect, but I'll show you even more of that in the final reveal. This is my first long form video here on YouTube, so if you'd like to see some more, please hit all the like and subscribe buttons. And now, the final reveal. That's all for today. Happy Halloween, everybody!